Let's talk about Haki. Haki as a power system has been a mainstay of One Piece for the entirety of the post-time skip portion of the story. And it's something that has become so standard for us that a lot of us don't take time to really consider the strengths and weaknesses of it as a power system. So, especially in light of developments within the past couple of arcs, I think it might be time to look at all of the merits and flaws that exist within the Haki system, and things that might be a little bit worrisome, but in the end we need to trust that Oda will do a good job of portraying these elements in his story. So, without any further ado, let's start with Section 1. So I'm certainly not the first person to point out the fact that Haki as a power system fits perfectly with the themes that we see in One Piece. All throughout the story, we're told that the things that make Luffy and the Straw Hats so powerful and so troublesome isn't necessarily their physical stats, or their devil fruit powers, or even their camaraderie as a group, but it's the fact that all of them individually have the willpower to keep fighting until they've won. And the idea that willpower is the real source of strength is a theme that's echoed countless times. Whenever Luffy loses to the main villain of an arc, he dusts himself off, gets back up, and gets ready for the next round of the fight. And he will not stop until he has finally achieved whatever goal he's set his mind to at that point. And that single-minded determination was enough to bring him from humble beginnings in East Blue all the way to the end of the Paradise half of the Grand Line. However, Oda pulled a little sneaky on us, and the theme that we've taken for granted, that willpower is strength, becomes very literally woven into the fabric of the One Piece world with the addition of Haki, a word in Japanese that literally translates to willpower. So, while we've been experiencing the theme that willpower is strength, we are now literally seeing that the strength of your will directly, mathematically improves your combat abilities. So, really, what better of a power system could there be for One Piece than willpower becoming your physical strength? Now, this is something that is more of a relevant concern for manga readers rather than anime watchers, because in anime, it's pretty easy to have a detailed explanation of a power system just thrown into the middle of an episode when there's nothing particularly important for the characters to talk about. You can just drop a little bit of exposition while they're doing something interesting. But when you're reading a manga, it's really important to be able to tell just by the pictures on the page what exactly is happening. And that readability is something that Oda is always incredible at. In every aspect of his story, Oda is very good at making it so that the average reader could at least have a 95% understanding of the context and the emotions in the story without even needing to be able to read the text that he's putting into the speech bubbles. And nothing personally bothers me more in a manga or an anime or in any kind of story than a power system that I feel like I need to read 10 wiki pages in order to be able to comprehend what's going on in the fights. I'm not going to name names for any particular anime because this isn't about roasting others. This is about praising Haki, and with all three flavors of Haki, you can really see how Oda has gone out of his way to make it easy to tell when characters are using Haki, with some potential caveats. But in terms of armament, we see the black coating on top of swords and legs and arms that we know is invisible in universe based on things that Oda has explained to us in SBS corners and whatnot. But we can see easily that this person has black armor on their fist, and that makes it so that their punches are harder or that they have better defense. Easy, simple to understand. And observation Haki is very much the same, at least in terms of when one fighter has observation Haki, and the other one doesn't. And this is something that I'll touch on a little bit more in the future, but when one character has observation Haki, Oda is very clear at showing, this person is using their spiritual abilities to predict the opponent's moves and be able to dodge them without even really thinking about it. See Mantra in Skypiea, which later got retconned into Haki. And Conqueror's Haki, we all know the face of Conqueror's Haki, that intense glare that sends out a shockwave and knocks out everyone in 100 feet radius, or even wider, depending on the strength of your Conqueror's will. And all three flavors of Haki at the basic level are perfectly easy to understand without even needing to read a single speech bubble. And Rayleigh gives more detailed descriptions of the strengths and weaknesses of each type when he's training Luffy, but you don't really need that. It's clear that beyond nitty-gritty fringe cases, armament makes your punches harder, observation makes it easier to dodge, and Conqueror's Haki lets you exert your will over others. Now, I've been very complimentary of Haki as a power system so far in the video, and as anime power systems go, I do think that it has a lot of strengths and only very, very few weaknesses, but the physical mechanics of how Haki works in universe is definitely the part where I'm going to get substantially more critical of Haki as a system. So, starting off with armament Haki, the thing that armament Haki does is it levels the playing field to the extent that we don't need to worry about a devil fruit power being completely untouchable for all of our frontline fighters. In pre-time skip, Luffy got really, really lucky in terms of the Logia fruits that he went up against, in that crocodiles had, a very specific and unique weakness that he was able to exploit. That is, the Logia intangibility was nullified by any surface moisture on Luffy's body. And Enel was just hard countered by Luffy by, luck and circumstances. But in terms of Logia fruits, Oda sort of wrote himself into a corner a little bit in that the only real counter to them and the only reliable way to fight your average Logia fruit is either to have a positive Logia matchup or to have some Sea Prism Stone on hand. And neither of those things are really reliable, and neither of them would make for particularly interesting writing on Oda's part. So, by using armament Haki, he essentially flattened the learning curve in terms of new devil fruit abilities, and made it so that he can tell more straightforward, physical brawl type fights. And, for those of you who really enjoy detailed choreography and interesting power matchups, I can tell how that could be seen as a negative. But for the type of story that Oda tries to tell with One Piece, I think ultimately the fact that armament Haki makes things simple and straightforward is to the benefit of the writing. Because for all of his great strengths, Oda isn't the best at drawing moment-to-moment choreography in fights. He's unparalleled in terms of emotional context to fights and in terms of stakes and creating fun scenarios and secondary outcomes that are achieved by the final blow. But moment-to-moment choreography is just not a strength of his. And we shouldn't be ashamed to admit it as One Piece fans. But armament Haki makes it so that every fight is pretty straightforward in the sense that we don't need to worry about physically being able to hit the opponents. We just need to be able to show Luffy's willpower and his drive to surpass them. I know the logical next step would be observation Haki, because everyone can unlock observation Haki, but I do want to take a quick detour to Conqueror's Haki, because with the developments we've seen in the current manga arc with the fights against Big Mom and Kaido, I have some worries about Conqueror's Haki moving forward. So the basic level of Conqueror's Haki that we all know and love is that intense glare that knocks out people with weaker wills. Very simple, very straightforward, very evocative of the idea that someone is just such a powerful force of will and nature that they don't even have to hit you in order to take you down, unless you are the creme de la creme of people who would be coming against them. But Advanced Conqueror's Haki kind of just strikes me as better armament Haki. Because the way that it's shown in the current fight against Kaido is that you can coat your attacks in Conqueror's Haki, and that increases the damage that you're able to do, and having Conqueror's Haki and being able to use it in this way kind of makes you untouchable to anyone who doesn't have it. And that's evidenced by the fact that Luffy really couldn't do anything against Kaido until he figured out Advanced Conqueror's Haki. And once he figured it out, he's going toe-to-toe. And, Devil Fruit stuff notwithstanding, Conqueror's Haki was the thing that really gave Luffy a fighting chance. So maybe moving forward, we'll see different applications of Conqueror's Haki, or we'll see how it is meaningfully differentiated from Armament Haki at the more advanced levels. But for the time being, it just seems like Armament Haki is irrelevant once you've unlocked Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So finally, let's talk about Observation Haki. And Observation Haki, first and foremost, it's kind of a weird outlier in the power system. Being able to turn your willpower into physical strength in terms of Armament Haki is something that's made sense for the mechanics of the story and the themes that Oda has tried to push throughout One Piece. And being able to exert your will over others so strongly that you can knock them out just with a glare is also something that Oda has peppered in little instances of this throughout the entirety of One Piece. But being so strong-willed that you can anticipate your opponent's moves, it feels like a bit of a non sequitur to me. Like, if you treat it as essentially just hyper-intuition, then I can kind of see the connection with willpower, but willpower is such an intrinsic thing that applying it to being able to predict other people's movements just doesn't really click for me the way that Armament and Conquerors do. And I alluded to this briefly during the readability portion of this video, but when one character has Observation Haki and another doesn't in a fight, then you can really see the extent to which it's almost an unbeatable advantage. But when both characters have Observation Haki, it basically just seems like neither of them have it. It's just an easy one-to-one canceling out of abilities. And with Future Sight, it's kind of the same thing, unfortunately. During the Luffy versus Katakuri fight, when Luffy finally was able to see a little bit of the future, there wasn't really good conveyance of them competing to change the future. It just kind of seemed like Future Sight cancels each other out, and now it's just a straightforward physical brawl. And that's not bad, that's not lazy, but I think Observation Haki as a concept just doesn't really mesh as well with the other types of Haki. And a part of me suspects that the only reason Oda included it as a part of Haki was to be able to retcon and explain Mantra from Skypiea without having it be this weird exclusive Sky Islander ability. But that's just me speculating based off of no information other than just a vibe that it's kind of off when compared with the rest of the Haki system. Now, at this point, I do want to make it clear that I ultimately trust Oda, and I think that he's a good enough writer to be able to address all of the problems that I've listed in a meaningful way, and to leave us all satisfied with how Haki is implemented into the story by the end of the series. I am in no way trying to suggest that Haki is a bad power system, or that Oda is making a bunch of mistakes by overlapping Conquerors with Armament, or by making Future Sight just cancel each other out, because there's only so much you can do as a writer without having walls of text explaining the exact nuances of the moment to moment of a fight. And I might be alone in thinking all of this, and I would absolutely want to know if you agree with everything I've said, or if you have issues, let me know in the comments below. And look forward to more One Piece discussions and anime and video games and life in general in the future. Thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day.